It was during this time that Anya experienced her first direct betrayal. She had reached out to a veteran board member, Eleanor Vance, a woman whom she had always respected for her integrity and shrewd business sense. Eleanor had initially expressed concern about Richard's aggressive tactics and had seemed receptive to Anya's subtle hints about corporate impropriety. Anya had trusted her, even providing her with some anonymized, but highly incriminating, data points against Richard. The accelerated cognitive development, Vance revealed, his voice gaining a desperate urgency. Your father believed he could create a generation of unparalleled intellects, capable of solving the world's most complex problems. But Richard, he saw an army of super-intelligent, genetically programmed individuals, loyal only to him, designed to dominate the global technology landscape. He wasn't interested in curing disease. He was interested in control. He funded me, bribed me, threatened me. He wanted to ensure the technology was solely for his benefit, and he wanted the products before anyone else could replicate them. But then, the next day, a private internal memo circulated among the board, quoting Eleanor Vance expressing grave concerns about Anya's unstable temperament and reckless accusations, effectively dismissing the data Anya had provided as unfounded paranoia. Eleanor, Anya realized with a bitter taste, had not only betrayed her trust but had actively sided with Richard, using the very information Anya had given her against her. The Q3 projections indicate a 15% increase in market penetration, provided we accelerate the neural network optimization by 2 weeks, Anya stated, her voice calm yet authoritative, cutting through the murmurs of data analysts. Her silver-gray suit, perfectly tailored, reflected the ambient light, a subtle statement of her unyielding professionalism. Her dark hair was pulled back in a severe, elegant bun, framing eyes that missed nothing. Thoughts? Jensen. The sting of betrayal was sharp, a rare emotional wound for Anya. She had built her life on logic, on the predictability of data, but human relationships, she was reminded, were a far more volatile equation. This discovery underscored the perilous isolation of her position. She truly could not trust anyone, save for Julian and Ilara, whose loyalty had been proven time and again. Jensen, the head of engineering, a man twice her age with decades of experience, cleared his throat. Ms. Sharma, while the team is dedicated, 2 weeks is an aggressive timeline. We're dealing with unprecedented computational complexity here. It could compromise stability. He's tightening the noose, Anya said to Julian, her voice flat, after learning of Eleanor's betrayal. He controls the narrative, he controls key board members, and he's eroding public and internal confidence. We need to accelerate our counterattack. It's time for Clara Vance to receive her package. Anya's lips curved into a faint, almost imperceptible smile. Compromise stability or reveal a lack of agility. Jensen. Our competitors aren't waiting for us to catch up. They're already breathing down our necks. We built Nexus Tech on the promise of innovation, not incrementalism. I believe in your team. Find the efficiencies. Optimize. We push forward. Her gaze, sharp and unwavering, left no room for argument. Jensen nodded, a slight flush on his face, understanding the unspoken command. When Anya Sharma spoke, it was not merely a suggestion, it was a directive etched in stone. Ilara, with a grim determination, meticulously prepared the anonymized data packet. It contained irrefutable evidence of Richard's stock manipulation, the hidden financial flows to Vitalis Labs, and detailed timelines linking his public statements to his clandestine activities. It was enough, Anya knew, to trigger a full-scale investigation and unravel Richard's carefully constructed web of deceit. The meeting continued, an intricate dance of numbers, strategies, and high-stakes decisions. Anya thrived in this environment, her mind a supercomputer, processing information at lightning speed, identifying weaknesses, and formulating solutions before others had even fully grasped the problem. This was her domain, a world built on logic, precision, and quantifiable results. Emotional outbursts were weaknesses, sentimentality a liability. She had built an empire by mastering these principles. The package, delivered through an intricate system of dead drops and encrypted digital transfers, landed in Clara Vance's hands. Anya knew the journalist's reputation once Clara sank her teeth into a story. She wouldn't let go. It was a calculated risk, but Anya believed it was their only path forward. Suddenly, A discreet buzz emanated from her wrist communicator. Anya glanced at it, a flicker of irritation crossing her features. Her assistant, Ilara, knew better than to interrupt unless it was an absolute emergency. Anya raised a hand, pausing the presentation. Excuse me. Days later, the first tremors of the earthquake Anya had instigated began. Clara Vance's investigative team, working swiftly and discreetly, confirmed the authenticity of the data. A series of bombshell articles began to appear in the very financial news outlet that had previously attacked Nexus Tech. These articles, far more thoroughly researched and damning, began to expose the intricate financial web Richard had spun. They detailed the suspicious stock movements, the shell corporations, and the undisclosed investments in a defunct, ethically questionable biotech lab. The article stopped short of mentioning Project Genesis or the babies, per Anya's careful design, but they painted a clear picture of corporate malfeasance and a ruthless ambition that shocked the financial world. She tapped her communicator. Ilara, what is it? The initial public reaction was a mix of outrage and disbelief. Richard Sharma, once a revered figure, was suddenly under intense scrutiny. Regulatory bodies announced preliminary investigations. The Nexus Tech board, now facing public pressure, was forced to address the allegations. Ilara's voice, usually a paragon of composure, was laced with an unusual tremor. Ms. Sharma, there's a delivery. It's highly unusual. The courier insists it's for your personal signature only. He won't leave without it. Anya watched the unfolding chaos from the quiet sanctity of the safe house, a flicker of grim satisfaction in her eyes. Richard had wanted a war. Now, he had one. And she had just fired the first true shot, using his own weapons against him, public opinion and financial vulnerability. But she knew this was just the beginning. Richard would not surrender easily. He would fight back, perhaps even more viciously. Now that his carefully constructed world was beginning to crumble, Anya frowned, a rare display of annoyance. A delivery. At this hour. And for my personal signature, what is it? Classified documents. Tell security to verify his credentials and receive it. I'm in a critical meeting. He'll know it was me, Anya murmured to Julian, her gaze fixed on the news reports. He'll know I started this. Ma'am, I've tried. He says it's a special package and requires your direct authorization. He's persistent. And the package? It's rather large. And there's a strange noise coming from it. Ilara's voice dropped to an almost whisper. It sounds like crying. Julian nodded, a faint, almost imperceptible smile touching his lips. He will. And that is precisely the point. You've cornered him. Anya. Now we wait for him to make his desperate move. And when he does, we will be ready. A ripple went through the executive team. Crying. In the Nexus Tech headquarters, Anya felt a cold prickle of unease. This was entirely out of character for the meticulously controlled environment she cultivated. Crying, she repeated, her voice sharper than intended. Send him up, immediately, and clear the hallway. Jensen, continue with the data integrity review. We'll resume in 10 minutes. Anya looked towards the nursery, where the faint, rhythmic breathing of the 5 babies was a constant, powerful reminder of her ultimate mission. She was no longer just the CEO fighting for her company. She was a protector, a guardian, driven by a profound, unexpected love. The game was on, and Anya Sharma, the formidable strategist, was ready to play for keeps. The executives exchanged bewildered glances, but no one dared question Anya. She always had a reason, even if it was inscrutable. As the holographic display faded, a heavy silence fell, broken only by the distant hum of the servers. Anya stood, walking to the panoramic window that overlooked the sprawling cityscape. Her back to her team, her mind raced, trying to find a logical explanation. A PR stunt gone wrong, an elaborate prank by a rival company. But Ilara's voice, that uncharacteristic tremor, suggested something far more unsettling. The articles published by Clara Vance had detonated like a series of carefully placed charges, sending shockwaves through the seemingly impenetrable edifice of Richard Sharma's reputation. The financial world, once deferential to his every pronouncement, now viewed him with suspicion. Regulatory bodies had launched full-scale investigations into the convoluted financial trails, connecting him to defunct shell corporations, and more alarmingly, to the ethically tainted Vitalis labs. The Nexus Tech board, now under intense public and legal pressure, could no longer ignore the mounting evidence. Anya's initial salvo had not merely hit its target, it had created a gaping wound. Moments later, the conference room door slid open with a soft whoosh. Ilara entered, her face pale, followed by a burly courier in a standard-issue uniform, struggling with a ridiculously oversized rectangular cardboard box. The box was plain, unmarked, save for a single crudely scrawled label, "To Anya Sharma, from Urgent, sign for it." From the secure confines of the safe house, Anya observed the unfolding chaos with a steely satisfaction. The hum of her screens, now displaying real-time financial news feeds and regulatory announcements, replaced the earlier tension with a focused determination. The 5 babies, oblivious to the storm they had unwittingly unleashed, were growing, each day bringing new smiles, new sounds, and a deeper, more profound connection with Anya. They were her anchor, her constant reminder of the fight's true purpose. And from within the box, unmistakable now, came a faint whimpering sound. Julian Thorne, ever the strategist, had anticipated Richard's next move. "He's cornered. Anya," he stated, his gaze fixed on a projected timeline of Richard's public appearances and dwindling support. His carefully constructed empire of influence is crumbling. He'll either try to flee or he'll lash out in desperation. Given his ego, I predict the latter. Anya turned, her eyes narrowed, instantly assessing the situation. The courier looked genuinely uncomfortable, shifting his weight. "Ms. Sharma, I have a package for you. Says it's urgent. Needs your signature." He held out a digital clipboard, his eyes avoiding the box. "He won't flee," Anya confirmed, her voice devoid of doubt. "Richard values control above all else. He won't abandon his ambition, not when he believes he's so close to achieving it. He'll double down. He'll seek to eliminate the source of his problems, me." "What exactly is in this package?" Anya demanded, her voice an icy blade. "And why is it making noise?" Ilara, who had been meticulously tracking Richard's private communications, chimed in. "His security detail has been significantly increased. He's also been attempting to contact key board members, offering incentives to maintain their loyalty, but a lot of them are jumping ship. The investigations are too serious. The scrutiny too intense." The courier swallowed hard. "Ma'am, I don't know. I just pick him up and drop him off. This one was different. Came from a private clinic, out in the old district. He's losing his grip." Anya concluded. "This is our window. We need to press harder." A private clinic in the old district? The word sent another shiver down Anya's spine. That area was known for its clandestine operations, its gray market dealings, far removed from the gleaming towers of Nexus Tech. "Bring it over," she commanded, walking purposefully towards the box. The opportunity arose sooner than expected. The Nexus Tech board, forced by the accumulating evidence and public outrage, convened an emergency meeting. The agenda, ostensibly, was to address the allegations against Richard Sharma and the company's response, but everyone in attendance knew the unspoken truth: this was a trial. Not just for Richard, but for the future direction of Nexus Tech itself. Anya, as CEO, was expected to lead the discussion. The courier carefully lowered the box onto the large, polished table, the whimpering sound growing slightly louder. It was definitely a baby crying, not one, but perhaps multiple, judging by the subtle variations in pitch. Anya's executives watched in stunned silence, their faces a mixture of confusion and growing alarm. This was no ordinary corporate drama. Julian had strongly advised against Anya attending in person. "It's a trap. Anya, Richard will try to discredit you, to twist the narrative, to create a spectacle. He'll use it to turn the board against you." Anya approached the box, her senses on high alert. There was no visible tape, only a simple, folded lid. She reached out, her fingers brushing the cardboard, and then, with a decisive motion, she opened it. "Let him!" Anya responded, her eyes glinting. "I want him to. He thrives in the shadows. I will force him into the light. This is where he finally reveals himself, and where I expose him completely." The world tilted on its axis. The board meeting was held in Nexus Tech's largest, most ornate conference room, a space usually reserved for annual shareholder gatherings. The air was thick with tension as Anya walked in, her silver-gray suit a stark contrast to the somber tones of the other board members. Richard was already there, seated at the far end of the table, his face a mask of wounded indignation. His usually impeccable hair was slightly disheveled, and there was a flicker of something desperate in his eyes. He still projected an air of authority, but it was brittle, fragile. Inside the package, nestled amongst soft organic cotton blankets, were 5 tiny bundles, 5 babies, all newborns, perhaps only days old, their small faces scrunched up in various stages of distress, tiny fists batting at the air. One was a ginger-haired boy, another a dark-skinned girl, a third a fair-haired girl with eyes still closed, a fourth a boy with a shock of black hair, and the fifth almost hidden, a tiny baby with delicate features. They were impossibly small, impossibly vulnerable, and impossibly there. Anya took her seat at the head of the table, her gaze sweeping over the assembled faces. Some avoided her eyes, others looked at her with a mix of fear and curiosity. Marcus Thorne, Richard's most vocal ally, sat rigid, his loyalty visibly wavering. Eleanor Vance, the board member who had betrayed Anya, kept her head down, avoiding eye contact. Anya stared, utterly speechless. Her perfect, ordered universe, built on data and logic, imploded around her. 5 babies, in a box, delivered to her. The CEO of Nexus Tech. The thought was so absurd, so outlandish, it bordered on a hallucination. Yet, the tiny cries, the faint scent of baby lotion and newness, were undeniably real. "Thank you all for attending this urgent session," Anya began, her voice calm and authoritative, cutting through the murmurs. "As you are all aware, Nexus Tech is currently facing unprecedented scrutiny due to a series of serious allegations regarding financial impropriety and unethical conduct. These allegations primarily concern the actions of a key board member, Mr. Richard Sharma." The executives gasped. Jensen choked on air. Alara clapped a hand over her mouth, tears welling in her eyes. The courier, seeing the contents, visibly recoiled, his face turning an ashen white. Richard immediately sprang to his feet, his face reddening. "This is an outrage, Anya, a baseless smear campaign orchestrated by you. No doubt, to consolidate your power. These are mere rumors, innuendo, planted by a sensationalist press." Anya felt a primal shock, a sensation so foreign, so overwhelming, it threatened to incapacitate her. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the silence that had fallen over the room. This wasn't a PR stunt. This wasn't a prank. This was something else entirely. "Are the regulatory investigations rumors?" Anya countered, her voice unwavering. "Are the freeze orders on your offshore accounts innuendo? Is the irrefutable evidence of stock manipulation, now being investigated by global financial authorities, merely sensationalist press?" She projected a summary of Clara Vance's articles, alongside official regulatory announcements, onto the main screen. The data was damning, undeniable. Her gaze fell on an envelope tucked neatly between 2 of the bundles. Her hands, usually steady as a surgeon's, trembled slightly as she picked it up. It was heavy, made of thick, cream-colored paper, sealed with a wax emblem she didn't recognize. With a deep breath, she broke the seal and pulled out a single sheet of paper. Richard's eyes darted around the room, seeking support, but the faces of the board members were stern, their expressions reflecting the gravity of the situation. Their own reputations and the financial stability of Nexus Tech were at stake. The letter was typed, the font elegant but stark. "This is a witch hunt." "I tell you," Richard roared, his usual polished demeanor cracking under the pressure, "a desperate attempt to silence me, to prevent me from exposing your own reckless management. Anya, your Project Chimera is bleeding Nexus Tech dry with its astronomical costs and unproven theories. I have always stood for fiscal responsibility. For the true legacy of my brother, Ms. Sharma." "My father's legacy," Anya interjected, her voice dangerously quiet, "is precisely what we are discussing. Richard, a legacy you have systematically corrupted and sought to usurp for your own dark ambitions. These 5 children are your responsibility now. Their lineage is undeniable, their future intertwined with yours. They represent a legacy you have unwittingly inherited, a burden and a blessing that will challenge every aspect of your carefully constructed life." She then played a recorded, authenticated excerpt from Dr. Elias Vance's panicked call. edited to remove any identifying details that might compromise the baby's safety, but leaving in his chilling accusations against Richard. Vance's voice, raw with fear and desperation, spoke of Richard's coercion, his funding of Vitalis Labs even after its supposed closure, and his plan to weaponize the fruits of Project Genesis. Do not attempt to deny them. Do not attempt to cast them aside. We are watching. Their safety is paramount. Any deviation from their proper care will result in consequences you cannot fathom. The room erupted in gasps. Marcus Thorne visibly flinched. Eleanor Vance's head snapped up, her face pale. The weight of the revelations was overwhelming. Further instructions will follow. For now, simply acknowledge their presence. Accept your fate. This is a fabrication, Richard shrieked, his face contorted in a mask of pure rage. A deep fake. A lie concocted by a discredited madman and my vengeful niece. Sign for it. Is it a lie, Richard? Anya challenged, her eyes boring into his, that you continued to fund Vitalis Labs through a series of shell corporations, long after the Sharma Family Foundation supposedly withdrew its support? Is it a lie that you pressured Dr. Vance to continue his unethical experiments, not for humanity's good, but for your own perverse desire for power? There was no name, no return address, just the chilling, imperious command. Sign for it! The words echoed in her mind, a mocking refrain. She then revealed the meticulously gathered financial data, cross-referenced with public statements Richard had made, showing a clear pattern of manipulation, a deliberate effort to hijack her father's research and use it for his own gain. The sheer scale and audacity of his deception were laid bare for all to see. Anya looked up, her eyes wide, scanning the stunned faces around her. No one spoke. The cries of the babies, though soft, seemed to fill the vast conference room, a piercing indictment of the cold, sterile environment. This was not a business deal. This was not a market analysis. This was life, raw and demanding, thrust upon her with brutal force. Richard, his back against the wall, his carefully constructed persona utterly shattered, slumped back into his chair. His eyes, usually filled with calculated menace, now held a glint of genuine desperation. The game was up. He was exposed. For a woman who had built her life on control, on absolute command of every variable, this was the ultimate surrender. Her mind, usually so quick to dissect and strategize, was a blank slate, overwhelmed by the sheer, impossible reality of the situation. 5 babies, her responsibility, a legacy, a fate. You don't understand. Anya, Richard began, his voice surprisingly calm, almost weary. The mask of indignation finally gone. You never understood. Your father. He was a genius. Yes. But he was also naive. He chased ideals. Improving humanity, as he called it, he poured billions into Project Genesis, a bottomless pit of theoretical concepts and ethical quandaries. He was going to bankrupt the family, bankrupt Nexus Tech. With his reckless pursuit of a fantasy, the courier, still holding his digital clipboard, cleared his throat nervously. So, ma'am, do I get your signature now? Anya listened, her expression unreadable, allowing him to unravel, to confess his darkest motivations. Anya stared at him, then back at the letter, then at the innocent, vulnerable faces in the box. A part of her wanted to scream, to reject this absurd imposition, to demand answers. Another part, deeper and more primal, stirred within her, a dormant instinct she never knew she possessed. These were living beings, helpless, entirely dependent. I saw the potential, Richard continued, his voice gaining a chilling fervor. I saw what he couldn't. He was creating something powerful, something that could revolutionize everything. But he lacked the pragmatism, the will, to truly harness it. He spoke of gifts to humanity. I spoke of control, of destiny. Her hand, still shaking, reached for the digital clipboard. Her signature, usually so confident and flowing, was a jagged scrawl. She signed the receipt, the act feeling like a profound, irreversible commitment. As she handed it back, the courier, relieved, mumbled a quick thank you and practically fled the room. He looked directly at Anya, his eyes blazing with a mixture of resentment and a twisted sense of superiority. I saved his legacy. Anya! I took his abstract science and made it real, made it useful. After his death, I continued to fund Vance, Discreetly, I cultivated the embryos, refined the genetic enhancements. I saw the true purpose of Project Genesis to create a new generation of leaders, of thinkers, of unparalleled intellects, loyal, focused, utterly devoted to the greater good, my greater good. Imagine the power, Anya Nexus Tech, not just a tech giant, but the architect of human evolution itself. Silence descended once more, but this time it was different. It was pregnant with unasked questions, with dawning realizations. Anya was no longer just the formidable CEO of Nexus Tech. She was Anya Sharma, a woman who had just received a package containing 5 super cute babies, and she was, undeniably, shocked. More than that, she was irrevocably changed. Her life, her empire, her very identity had just been redefined by 5 tiny bundles of innocence and a chilling, anonymous decree. Anya felt a cold wave wash over her. It was worse than she'd imagined. Richard hadn't merely hijacked her father's research, he had corrupted its very soul. His vision wasn't just about corporate dominance, it was about totalitarian control. A horrifying eugenics program masquerading as progress. She looked at her team, their faces reflecting her own bewilderment. "Elara," she said, her voice strained but firm. "Contact my legal team, Julian Thorne. Tell him I need him here, immediately. And then, find everything you can about private clinics in the old district, every single detail, and the 5 children." "Richard?" Anya asked, her voice a whisper, yet it cut through the silence like a scalpel. "Were they meant to be your personal army? Your tools to control the market, to control the world?" Her gaze returned to the babies, still whimpering softly in their improvised crib. A strange, unfamiliar warmth began to spread through her chest, mingling with the cold dread. This was not just a problem to solve. It was a crisis that demanded more than just her intellect. It demanded something she had long suppressed, something she had deliberately walled off from her professional life. A flicker of pride, disturbingly, crossed Richard's face. "They are the first, Anya, the most successful. 5 perfect specimens, genetically programmed for accelerated learning, for unparalleled problem-solving. They were meant to be integrated into Project Chimera, to give Nexus Tech an insurmountable advantage, to make us, and by extension, me, the undisputed rulers of the global economy. I sent them to you as a final test, a challenge, to see if you had the vision, the courage, to truly embrace this new future. It demanded her heart. You sent them to me, a package of innocent lives, as a test." Anya's voice rose, a raw edge of fury entering her tone. "You risked their lives, endangered them, simply to satisfy your twisted ambition." The hushed silence in the Nexus Tech conference room was far more jarring than any uproar. Anya Sharma stood rooted, her gaze fixed on the 5 bundles of fragile life, their soft whimpers the only sound piercing the corporate stillness. The initial shock had receded, replaced by a cold, sharp clarity that cut through the fog of disbelief. This was not a dream. This was real, urgent, and profoundly unsettling. Her mind, an engine built for crisis management, began to whir, sifting through the layers of absurdity to find a logical starting point. Small sacrifices. "Anya," Richard scoffed, waving a dismissive hand, "for the greater glory, you are too sentimental, too weak. Your father was the same, always held back by ethics, by morality. True power requires a willingness to transcend such petty concerns." "Elara," Anya's voice, though low, carried an unshakable command. "Cancel all my appointments for the next 48 hours. Clear my schedule entirely. Jensen, contact security. I want a full forensics team to examine that package. The courier's details, his route, every single pixel captured by our surveillance network, every interaction. I want a report on my desk in 1 hour. No exceptions." Anya stood, her entire body radiating a furious, controlled energy. "No, Richard. True power comes with true responsibility. What you have done is not power. It is abuse. Abuse of science, abuse of trust, and abuse of innocent lives. My father, for all his flaws, never intended for his research to be weaponized, to be used for such depraved purposes." Jensen, still visibly shaken, stammered, "Yes, Miss Sharma, immediately." He quickly exited, leaving Anya with her assistant. She turned to the stunned board members, her gaze sweeping over each of their faces. Richard Sharma has not only engaged in blatant corporate espionage and financial fraud, but he has also perverted the legacy of Nexus Tech's founder, my father, by engaging in unethical human experimentation for his own gain. He has endangered innocent children, and he has sought to use this abominable technology to seize control of this company and bend it to his malevolent will. He is a threat not just to Nexus Tech, but to the very fabric of ethical science and human dignity. And Alira, Anya continued, turning to her, get me Julian Thorne, on the line, or in person. I don't care. Tell him it's an emergency of the highest legal and personal priority. And then, as I said, commence a full deep dive into that private clinic in the old district. Every license, every employee, every owner, every whisper of rumor. Leave no stone unturned. I motion for the immediate removal of Richard Sharma from the board of directors, Anya declared, her voice ringing with unshakable authority. And I further motion for full cooperation with all regulatory and legal bodies in their investigation into his criminal activities, including the full disclosure of his involvement with Vitalis Labs and Project Genesis, with the utmost care taken to protect the identities and well-being of any and all individuals affected. The hum of the server racks, a symphony of controlled power, was the only sound Anya Sharma truly appreciated in her daily life. It was a constant, predictable rhythm. Unlike the chaotic pulse of the human world she meticulously managed from her perch atop Nexus Tech, a global titan in artificial intelligence and quantum computing. Anya, barely in her late 30s, had shattered glass ceilings with the force of a meteor, her intellect and unwavering resolve carving a path through an industry notoriously dominated by men. Today was no different. She sat at the head of the obsidian conference table, her gaze sweeping over the eager faces of her executive team. The holographic display shimmered, projecting intricate market analytics for their latest venture, Project Chimera, a revolutionary AI capable of adaptive learning. The room was silent for a moment, the weight of Anya's words hanging heavy in the air. Then, Marcus Thorne, his face pale and eyes wide with dawning horror, slowly raised his hand. I second the motion. Other hands cautiously followed, one by one, until a clear majority was reached. Eleanor Vance, still avoiding Anya's gaze, abstained. Alara, recovering her composure, nodded, her eyes still wide with a mix of concern and admiration for Anya's swift pivot to action. Right away, Ms. Sharma, she too, hurried out, leaving Anya alone with the babies. Richard watched, his face a mask of disbelief, then a slow, insidious fury. He had underestimated her. He had dismissed her as a mere CEO, a technocrat, incapable of truly understanding the depths of his ambition. He had thought her cold, unfeeling, easily manipulated. But he had awakened a sleeping lion, a protector with a fierce, unwavering moral compass. Anya approached the table cautiously. She had held a baby only once in her life, a distant cousin's child at a family gathering she had endured rather than enjoyed. The sheer vulnerability, the overwhelming dependence, had felt alien to her structured existence. Now, 5 of them lay before her, each a tiny universe of needs. One of the babies, the fair-haired girl, began to fuss more insistently, her tiny face reddening, a small sob escaping her lips. "You will regret this, Anya," Richard hissed, rising to his feet, his eyes burning with hatred. "You have no idea what you've unleashed. There are others who understand the true potential of Project Genesis, others who will come for what is theirs. You have just made an enemy far more powerful than you can imagine." Anya hesitated. Then, driven by an instinct she hadn't known she possessed, she gently reached into the box. Her fingers, accustomed to complex circuitry and touchscreens, felt clumsy as they brushed against the soft blanket. She carefully lifted the crying infant. The baby was surprisingly warm, a feather-light weight in her arms. Its cry quieted slightly, replaced by soft whimpers as its eyes, still unfocused, blinked open. They were a startling shade of blue, like tiny pieces of the sky. Anya met his gaze, unflinching. "I am prepared for any enemy, Richard, and I will protect what is mine, including my father's true legacy and the lives of those innocent children you so cruelly exploited." Anya found herself staring into them. A strange, unprecedented connection forming. This wasn't a problem to be solved with algorithms or market strategies. This was raw, untamed life, and it demanded a different kind of attention. a different kind of strength. The letter's words echoed in her mind. Their lineage is undeniable, their future intertwined with yours. They represent a legacy you have unwittingly inherited. Security personnel, who had been discreetly waiting outside, entered the room and escorted a seething Richard Sharma out. The door closed behind him, leaving a profound silence in its wake. The storm, for now, had passed, but its echoes lingered. The confrontation had been brutal, exposing the rot within her own family. But it had also been cathartic. Anya had stood firm, facing down a monster, and for the first time in a long time, she felt a sense of profound clarity. The path forward was fraught with danger, but she would walk it, armed with truth, driven by purpose, and empowered by the unexpected love for 5 super cute babies. Legacy! The word resonated deeply. Her father, the brilliant but eccentric founder of Nexus Tech, had always spoken of legacy, though his had been one of technological advancement and scientific pursuit. He had died mysteriously a decade ago, leaving Anya, then a rising star in the company, to take the reins. Could these babies truly be connected to him? It felt impossible, yet the chilling certainty of the anonymous letter suggested otherwise. The boardroom triumph, while momentarily satisfying, was merely the end of a battle, not the war. Richard Sharma had been stripped of his position, publicly humiliated, and was now under intense investigation. But Anya knew his type-cornered animals were the most dangerous. His parting threat, chillingly delivered, echoed in her mind. There are others who understand the true potential of Project Genesis. This wasn't just about Richard. It was about a network, a conspiracy far larger than one man's ambition. Approximately 20 minutes later, Julian Thorne arrived. He was a man who moved with the quiet grace of a shadow. His presence felt more than heard. Julian was Nexus Tech's chief legal counsel and Anya's trusted confidant, a man whose loyalty had been forged in the fires of corporate battles. He was impeccably dressed, as always, his dark suit accentuating his lean frame, his silver-streaked hair swept neatly back. His eyes, a piercing shade of hazel, held a depth that hinted at untold experiences. Back at the safe house, the atmosphere, though still focused, carried a heavier weight. The comfort of the baby's presence, their innocent giggles now more frequent, was a stark contrast to the escalating threats. Luna, with her bright blue eyes, had started to mimic sounds, and Leo, ever the active one, was attempting to roll over. Stella, the quiet observer, seemed to watch Anya with an unnerving intensity, as if understanding the burdens she carried. Julian paused at the doorway, taking in the surreal scene. Anya, the indomitable CEO, cradling a newborn in the sterile, high-tech conference room, 4 other infants nestled in a cardboard box on the table. His expression remained unreadable, a testament to his decades of experience with the unexpected, but a faint crease appeared between his brows. "We need to find Dr. Vance," Anya stated, her gaze sweeping over Julian and Alara, who sat across from her at the secure holographic table. His testimony, even if not fully admissible, gave us crucial context. He implied there were others involved, a broader network. "Anya," he said, his voice calm. Alara's description barely did it justice. "He vanished immediately after our last contact," Alara reported, a frustrated frown on her face. "His digital footprint is non-existent. It's as if he evaporated. If Richard's network got to him first, he could be gone." Anya looked up, relief flooding her features at the sight of him. "Julian, thank heavens. This is beyond anything I've ever encountered." Julian's expression was grim, or silenced. Richard would not hesitate. Vance holds too much information about Project Genesis and Richard's true involvement. He walked further into the room, his gaze sweeping over the babies. Indeed, quintuplets, by the look of it, and clearly, recently born. He then turned his attention to the open envelope, reading the terse, anonymous letter. His eyes narrowed slightly as he absorbed the ominous words. A rather dramatic delivery method, even for a paternity suit. Anya felt a surge of cold anger. Then we need to find the physical proof he mentioned. The original data, the unsanitized records of Project Genesis, the evidence of its ethical breaches. It must exist somewhere, perhaps in a secure location tied to Vitalis Labs, or even my father's most secret archives that Vance might have accessed. Paternity. Anya scoffed, a flicker of her usual sharp wit returning. Julian, I assure you, this is not about a forgotten tryst. My life has been dedicated solely to Nexus Tech. These children are not mine by any conventional means. She carefully handed the baby back to the box, where it settled beside its siblings, whimpering softly again. The letter speaks of lineage and legacy, and the courier mentioned a private clinic in the old district. Something is profoundly wrong here. The search intensified, becoming a relentless race against an unseen clock. Ilara, with the full resources of Nexus Tech's data analysis division working discreetly under her command, began to scour every fragment of information related to Vitalis Labs. She delved into old property records, satellite imagery, and even obscure academic publications from a decade ago, looking for any anomaly, any hidden facility that might have served as the project's true nerve center. Julian, meanwhile, leaned on his vast network of legal contacts and private investigators, seeking any whisper of Dr. Vance's fate or any connection to the anonymous letter sender. Julian picked up the letter again, turning it over in his gloved hands, examining the wax seal. The emblem. It's intricate. Not one I immediately recognize. No obvious corporate or governmental insignia. He pulled out a small, specialized scanner from his inner jacket pocket and ran it over the paper. A series of faint blips and whirs. No fingerprints other than yours. The paper stock is high quality, but generic. No digital footprint in the printing. This was meticulously crafted to be untraceable. Days blurred into nights, marked only by the growing stacks of decrypted files and the occasional comfort of holding a cooing baby. Anya allowed herself only brief moments of respite in the nursery, drawing strength from the innocent lives she was fighting to protect. But even there, a sense of urgency gnawed at her. Richard's silence was ominous, a predator biding his time. They're watching, Julian, Anya said, her voice dropping. The letter made that clear. We are watching. Then, a breakthrough. Ilara, tracing a faint, almost invisible energy signature in archived satellite images from 10 years prior, discovered an abandoned, subterranean facility nestled deep within a remote, forested area in the old district. It was not listed on any official records, but its unusual energy output, consistent with high-level biological research, caught her attention. Then we must be equally discreet and far more effective, Julian replied, his voice firm. First things first, these babies need proper care. We cannot keep them here. It's a logistical nightmare and a security risk. It's heavily shielded. Anya, Ilara explained, projecting the grainy satellite images onto the table. Underground, reinforced, it resembles a decommissioned Cold War bunker, but with significant modern upgrades. I cross-referenced the energy signature with my father's old private expenditure logs. There's a series of massive, unexplained payments to a shell company specializing in deep earth excavation and reinforcement from around the time Project Genesis was at its peak. This could be it. This could be where the actual research was conducted, away from prying eyes. I agree, Anya said, her mind already racing through options. I've already had Ilara arrange for a discreet medical team and secure accommodations. They'll be taken to a safe house I own, far from here. Top-tier medical staff, under strict NDAs, will ensure their well-being, but that's merely a temporary solution. We need to understand why they were sent to me and who sent them. Anya's heart hammered. Get me a team, Ilara, covert, highly skilled. We're going in. Precisely, Julian acknowledged, his eyes thoughtful. The old district clinic is our most immediate lead. And this talk of legacy, it naturally points to your family. Anya, specifically, your father. Anya, that's incredibly dangerous, Julian interjected, his voice firm. If this facility is what we suspect, it could be booby-trapped, or worse, still active. We need to involve law enforcement, special forces. Anya bristled slightly. My father's work was in theoretical physics and advanced AI, not human biology. He was a genius, yes, but also intensely private. And he died 10 years ago. How could this be connected to him and risk the evidence being tampered with? Or worse, destroyed? Anya countered, her eyes flashing. Risk Richard's network getting there first and silencing anyone inside? No. This needs to be handled by us, by people I trust. We extract the data, we secure the facility, and then we bring in the authorities. She looked at Ilara. Can you provide remote access? Override any security protocols? Genius often treads paths others deem unconventional, Julian observed calmly. And death does not always sever all ties. Sometimes, it merely obscures them. Your father was known to fund various obscure research projects, some completely unrelated to Nexus Tech's core business, through shell corporations and private trusts. He believed in exploring the fringes of science, wherever it might lead. Ilara nodded, her face pale but determined. I can try. Nexus Tech's decryption capabilities are unparalleled, but it will require me to be physically close to establish a direct link to the facility's network. Anya remembered. Her father had indeed been a man of many secrets, a visionary whose mind often operated years ahead of its time. He had a particular fascination with the ethical boundaries of science, often debating the very nature of creation and humanity's role in it. It had always been a source of quiet tension between them, his abstract pursuits often clashing with her pragmatic focus on real-world applications. Then we go together, Anya decided, her resolve unshakable. Julian, you stay here, coordinating. Protect the babies. If anything happens to us, you are their sole guardian. And expose everything. I need to access his private archives, Anya declared. The ones he kept locked away, separate from Nexus Tech files. The ones I never touched after his death, out of respect. The extraction mission was planned with meticulous precision. A small, elite team of former Special Forces operatives, discreetly hired through Julian's contacts and vetted for their loyalty and skill, would accompany Anya and Ilara. They would move under the cover of darkness, utilizing Nexus Tech's stealth technology to avoid detection. Their objective: infiltrate the subterranean facility, locate Project Genesis's core research data, and secure any remaining personnel or subjects. Julian nodded. A logical step. But be warned, Anya. Your father had many allies, and perhaps just as many enemies, in those fringe circles. Some of his projects were highly sensitive, even controversial. Treading into that territory could stir up dormant threats. The night of the mission was cold and unforgiving. A thick fog clung to the remote forest, obscuring their movements. Anya, dressed in a tactical suit that felt both alien and empowering, moved with a newfound agility, her senses heightened. Ilara, usually confined to the digital realm, looked surprisingly resolute beside her, her comms headset glowing faintly. Threats that are already knocking on my door, Julian, in the form of 5 infants, Anya retorted, a steely glint in her eyes. I will not back down, not when innocent lives are at stake, and certainly not when my family's name is being invoked in this manner. As they approached the coordinates, the air grew heavy, thick with the scent of damp earth and something vaguely metallic. The ground beneath their feet, softened by centuries of fallen leaves, suddenly gave way to a concealed entrance, a reinforced steel hatch hidden beneath a cleverly designed rock formation. Ilara immediately went to work, her fingers flying across a specialized hacking device, bypassing the facility's complex external security. Just then, Ilara returned, looking slightly less panicked. Ms. Sharma, the medical team is en route. They're discreet, fully briefed on the sensitivity of the situation, and about the clinic in the old district. It's called Vitalis Labs. It officially closed down 5 years ago after a series of regulatory infractions and a controversial lawsuit regarding undisclosed human trials. The records are heavily sealed, but I've managed to unearth some public filings. The lead researcher was a Dr. Elias Vance, a brilliant but disgraced geneticist, known for his work in embryonic development. Got it, Ilara whispered, a bead of sweat trickling down her temple. External locks overridden, but the internal network is a beast, requires physical access to the main server room. Anya's breath caught. Embryonic development, human trials. This was far more sinister than she had imagined. And who funded Vitalis Labs? The steel hatch groaned open, revealing a dark, claustrophobic tunnel descending into the earth. The team moved in, Anya leading, her flashlight beam cutting through the oppressive darkness. The facility was cold, eerily silent, the only sound the crunch of their boots and the faint drip of water. Ilara hesitated. The public records are vague. Several shell corporations were involved, but one of the primary benefactors, listed under a blind trust, was the Sharma Family Foundation. They navigated a maze of desolate corridors, Each door sealed, each room holding untold secrets. The air grew colder, the silence heavier. This was not just a research facility, it was a tomb of forgotten experiments, a monument to a twisted vision. The name hung in the air, heavy with implication. The Sharma Family Foundation, her father's charitable arm, designed to fund promising scientific endeavors. But promising could mean many things, especially in the hands of a man who pushed boundaries. Finally, they reached a heavily reinforced door marked with a faded, almost illegible symbol. Ilara identified it. This is it, the Central Research Complex. The main server room should be directly behind here. Get me everything on Dr. Elias Vance, Anya commanded. His current whereabouts, his past projects, his connections, and cross-reference all Vitalis Labs personnel with any former employees of Nexus Tech or any entities linked to the Sharma Family Foundation. As Ilara worked on the door's intricate locking mechanism, a sudden metallic clang echoed from the corridor behind them. The team immediately snapped to attention. Weapons raised. Footsteps, heavy and deliberate, grew louder. Julian interjected, "Anya, we must also consider the legal ramifications of taking custody of these children. Without official documentation, without knowing their parentage, we are operating in a gray area. This could expose you to significant legal challenges, especially if the anonymous sender decides to weaponize this." "We have company," one of the operatives whispered, his voice grim. "Then we will create the necessary documentation," Anya said, her resolve hardening. "We will protect them. Find a way. Julian, use every loophole, every legal precedent. We will ensure they are legally under my guardianship. Whatever it takes." Anya's heart leaped into her throat. Richard, or his network. They had been tracked. He nodded, a hint of admiration in his gaze. "Very well. I will initiate the process. It will be complicated, but not impossible. We'll start with emergency guardianship petitions based on abandonment. This will grant you temporary legal authority while we investigate further." The footsteps advanced, and from the shadows emerged a squad of heavily armed men, their faces masked, their movements precise and professional. They were not ordinary thugs. These were highly trained mercenaries, likely from Richard's vast, illicit network. Anya turned back to the babies, who were now mostly quiet, one of them gently sucking on a tiny thumb. They were a vivid, undeniable presence, a stark contrast to the sterile, logical world she had built. The hum of the server racks now sounded distant, muted by the fragile cries and the burgeoning weight of responsibility. "Cover Ilara," Anya commanded, drawing a concealed stun gun she had reluctantly agreed to carry. "Secure the data." The medical team arrived shortly after, a group of highly trained pediatric nurses and doctors, their faces grimly professional as they carefully examined each infant. They confirmed the babies were all healthy, though slightly underweight, and estimated their age to be no more than a few days. They were bundled into specialized carriers, each with an integrated monitoring system, and meticulously transported out of Nexus Tech headquarters. Whisked away to the discreet safe house Anya had prepared, a fierce firefight erupted in the confined corridor. Stun blasts illuminated the darkness, the crackle of energy weapons echoing deafeningly. Anya, despite her lack of combat experience, moved with surprising instinct, dodging incoming fire, providing cover for Ilara. She was fighting not just for herself, but for the lives of those 5 babies, for the truth, for her father's desecrated legacy. As the last carrier disappeared from sight, Anya felt a strange pang in her chest, a mix of relief and an unexpected sense of loss. She was already becoming attached, a thought that would have been ludicrous just an hour ago. One of the mercenaries, a hulking figure, broke through the team's defense, charging directly for Ilara, who was still frantically working on the door. Anya lunged, firing her stun gun, but the mercenary was too fast. He deflected the blast, his powerful arm swinging towards Ilara. Anya," Julian said, breaking her reverie, "I suggest we proceed with extreme caution. If your father was involved in these undisclosed human trials, the implications are enormous. And the fact that someone delivered these children to you with such a veiled threat means they likely know a great deal about your family, and perhaps even your own vulnerabilities." "Ilara, no!" Anya screamed, but it was too late. The mercenary's fist connected with Ilara's head with a sickening thud. Ilara crumpled to the ground, her hacking device clattering beside her. a thin trickle of blood appearing at her temple. "I understand the risks, Julian," Anya replied, her voice steady. "But I cannot ignore this. These children are innocent, and if my family, or rather, my father's legacy, is somehow responsible for their existence, then it falls to me to protect them and uncover the truth. I will not allow them to be exploited or harmed." Anya felt a surge of white-hot rage. A primal scream caught in her throat. Alara, her loyal, brilliant assistant, now lay motionless. The price of this war had just become terrifyingly real. Her gaze swept over the now empty table, the only remaining evidence of the extraordinary delivery being the faint scent of baby powder. The cold dread that had settled in her stomach had not entirely dissipated, but it was now tempered by a fierce, protective resolve. Anya Sharma, the formidable CEO, had always been a strategist, a pragmatist, a woman who operated in the clear light of quantifiable data. Now, she was venturing into a world of shadows, of hidden legacies, and moral complexities. Driven by an imperative she was only just beginning to understand: the battle for Nexus Tech's future and for the lives of these 5 mysterious infants had just begun. And Anya knew, with a chilling certainty, that it would be the fight of her life. "Get her out of here!" Anya roared, firing another stun blast, this one connecting squarely with the mercenary's chest, dropping him to the ground. "Get her back to Julian." The safe house, a secluded modern villa nestled deep within a private estate far from the city's sprawl, became Anya's temporary command center. While the medical team attended to the 5 infants, Anya, fueled by caffeine and an unyielding will, immersed herself in the ghost of her father's past. Julian Thorne had expedited the retrieval of her father's personal archives from a highly secure vault beneath the old Sharma family estate. These weren't the corporate records of Nexus Tech, but the deeply private journals, research notes, and encrypted data drives of a man whose genius had often bordered on the obsessive. The remaining operatives, galvanized by Anya's fury and Alara's injury, fought with renewed ferocity, pushing back the attacking mercenaries. Anya, her hands shaking, knelt beside Alara, checking for a pulse. It was faint, but there. She was alive, but clearly, severely injured. The room where Anya now worked was stark, illuminated by the glow of multiple screens projecting decrypted files. The air was thick with the scent of old paper and the metallic tang of new technology. Julian worked silently beside her, his presence a steady anchor in the storm of information. "We need to get to the server room. Now," Anya commanded, her voice raw with grief and a desperate urgency. "Before they destroy everything." The initial analysis of the baby's DNA, cross-referenced with your father's known genetic markers, confirms a direct familial link. "Anya," Julian announced, his voice low, his eyes fixed on a complex genetic sequence on one of the screens. "It's not a full match, but there are unmistakable shared sequences. They are biologically related to your father, though not in any straightforward manner." With the mercenary threat temporarily neutralized, the team quickly breached the main door. Inside, a vast circular room opened up, dominated by a massive, ancient server array, its consoles humming with a faint, steady light. This was it, the heart of Project Genesis. Anya's fingers paused mid-type, her gaze snapping to Julian. "Not a straightforward manner. What does that mean?" Anya rushed to the central console, ignoring the lingering pain and fear. Her eyes scanned the databanks, her mind processing at an accelerated pace. She needed to find the core data, the proof, the answers. "It suggests a high degree of genetic manipulation or engineering," Julian explained, a grim line forming on his lips. "Their DNA exhibits markers of having been edited or enhanced in some way, particularly in regions associated with cognitive function and cellular regeneration. It's advanced, beyond anything publicly available or ethically sanctioned." "They're coming back!" an operative yelled from the entrance. "More of them?" A cold dread seeped into Anya's bones. Her father, a man she had idolized for his intellect, but also sometimes feared for his single-minded pursuit of knowledge, had delved into something profoundly disturbing. "So, my father was involved in genetic engineering, human genetic engineering." The words felt foreign, an unwelcome intrusion into her perception of him. Time was running out. Anya knew she couldn't extract all the data, not in the middle of a firefight. She needed something concise, something irrefutable. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, bypassing firewalls, downloading key files onto a secure, encrypted drive she had brought. She found Vance's original research logs, unedited. Her father's directives, also unedited, revealing his true idealistic intent. And most damningly, a series of financial ledgers directly linking Richard Sharma to the continued secret funding of the most unethical stages of Project Genesis. Long after her father's death, the evidence, meticulously detailed, was undeniable. The evidence points in that direction, Julian confirmed, pushing a pair of old leather-bound journals across the table towards her. These were among his most private, dated from around the time Vitalis Labs was active. He frequently references Project Genesis and the potential for accelerated human development. As she completed the download, the sounds of renewed combat intensified, blasts and shouts echoing closer. They had secured the evidence, but getting out alive was another matter. Anya looked at the injured Elara, who was being carefully carried by two operatives towards the exit. Her friend, her loyal ally, had paid a terrible price. Anya opened the first journal, the aged pages crackling faintly. Her father's familiar, elegant script filled the pages, but the content was chilling. Diagrams of cellular structures, cryptic notes on gene sequencing, and philosophical musings on the ethics of improving humanity. There were references to donors and seed banks, but never explicit mentions of human subjects. Yet the implication was clear, especially when viewed through the lens of Vitalis Labs and its controversial human trials. Anya felt a renewed resolve, hardened by loss and anger. Richard had not only desecrated her father's legacy and exploited innocent lives, he had now directly harmed those she cared about. The gloves were off. He was trying to create something, wasn't he? Anya whispered, more to herself than to Julian, to push the boundaries of what it means to be human. "We have what we came for," Anya shouted over the din of battle. "Fall back, Julian. Secure an extraction point. We're coming out." "It seems he was," Julian agreed. "The question is, why were these particular 5 sent to you, and who else knew about Project Genesis?" As they fought their way back through the dark, treacherous corridors, Anya realized the true cost of this war. It wasn't just about corporate power or family secrets. It was about flesh and blood, about loyalty and betrayal, about life and death. Her calculated, logical world had been shattered, replaced by a brutal reality where every decision carried an immense personal toll. But as she glimpsed Alara's pale, injured face in the dim light, Anya knew there was no turning back. She would secure justice, not just for the babies, not just for her father's true vision, but for Elara, and for every innocent person caught in Richard's web of deceit. The final confrontation was inevitable, and Anya Sharma, scarred but unbroken, was ready to pay any price to win. Anya's thoughts immediately went to Richard Sharma, her father's younger brother and a prominent figure on Nexus Tech's board. Richard had always been the pragmatic foil to her father's visionary idealism. A shrewd businessman with an insatiable appetite for power and wealth, their relationship had always been strained, marked by a quiet rivalry and deep-seated resentments. After her father's death, Richard had tried to wrestle control of Nexus Tech from Anya, a battle she had won through sheer force of will and a superior grasp of the company's future. The retreat from the subterranean facility was a blur of adrenaline and fear. Anya Sharma moved with a cold, calculated efficiency, guiding her operatives through the treacherous, fog-laden forest. The image of Elara, lying unconscious, a thin line of blood at her temple, was seared into Anya's mind, fueling a quiet, burning rage. They had secured the evidence, but at a terrible cost. The fight had become personal, brutal. "Richard," Anya said, her voice tight with a newfound suspicion. "He was always lurking in the shadows of my father's ventures, trying to find a way to capitalize on them. He might have known about Project Genesis, or at least suspected its existence." Upon returning to the safe house, the medical team immediately swarmed Elara, rushing her to the emergency medical bay they had set up. Julian Thorne, his face etched with worry, supervised their efforts, his usual composure giving way to a raw concern for his friend and colleague. Anya stood by, her body vibrating with unspent energy, her eyes fixed on Elara, praying for her recovery. "It's a strong possibility," Julian conceded. He had access to the Sharma Family Foundation's financials. Even if the specific projects were kept hidden from him by your father's discretion, she'll live. Anya, Julian said finally, after a tense hour of waiting. Concussion, some bruising, but no permanent damage. She's strong. She'll pull through. The relief that washed over Anya was profound, a momentary respite in the relentless storm. Anya made a decision. I need to speak with Richard, immediately. This can't wait. But the moment of calm was shattered by Julian's next words, delivered with a grim, almost defeated tone. Anya, while you were at the facility, Richard made his move here. She contacted her uncle, requesting an urgent private meeting. Richard, always eager to assert his influence, readily agreed, unaware of the true nature of Anya's urgency. The meeting was arranged for later that day. At Richard's sprawling penthouse apartment overlooking the city, Anya chose his territory, knowing it would make him feel secure, and therefore potentially more revealing. A cold dread gripped Anya's heart. Her gaze snapped to Julian. The babies, are they all right? When Anya arrived at Richard's penthouse, the opulent decor, filled with ancient artifacts and modern art, seemed to mock the dire circumstances she carried within her. Richard, a man whose silver hair was always perfectly coiffed and whose tailored suits bespoke old money and effortless authority, greeted her with a practiced smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Julian hesitated, then lowered his eyes. 4 of them are secure: Luna, Leo, Clara, Orion. They're fine. But Stella is gone. Anya, my dear niece, Richard began, gesturing towards a plush leather armchair. To what do I owe this unexpected yet delightful visit? I assume it's not another push for your daring, and frankly, risky, Project Chimera. Some of us on the board still have reservations about diverting such significant resources into unproven AI. His voice, smooth as aged whiskey, held a condescending undertone she knew all too well. The world tilted. Stella, the smallest, most delicate, the quiet observer. Anya felt a scream build in her throat, raw and primal. Her carefully constructed facade of control crumbled, revealing a terrifying chasm of fear and fury. Gone. How the safe house is impenetrable, the security. Anya ignored the bait. She sat, her posture as straight and unyielding as ever. This isn't about Project Chimera, Richard. It's about something far more personal and far more serious. Her eyes, usually dispassionate, held a steely glint that made Richard's smile falter slightly. He exploited the chaos you created at the facility, Julian explained, his voice low. Your mission drew his remaining forces away from him, but it also diverted some of our security here, preparing for extraction. He had an inside man. Anya, someone on the perimeter security team. He orchestrated a breach, precise and swift. He knew our every move, every countermeasure. He took Stella specifically, left the others. Oh, and what could possibly be more serious than the financial health of Nexus Tech, which, if I might add, your father and I built from the ground up? He scoffed. Taking a sip of his expensive single malt, Anya sank into a nearby chair, her body trembling with a mixture of grief and a renewed, blinding fury. Richard, he wasn't just a corporate shark, he was a monster. He had kidnapped an infant, a helpless baby, to use as a pawn in his twisted game. This wasn't strategy. This was depravity. Our father's legacy, Richard, Anya corrected him, her voice chillingly calm. Specifically, Project Genesis. Why Stella? Anya whispered, her voice hoarse, her mind racing for a logical explanation amidst the emotional wreckage. Why not all of them? Or one of the others? The effect was instantaneous and profound. Richard's hand holding the crystal glass froze midway to his lips. His carefully constructed facade cracked, revealing a flicker of raw surprise, followed by a defensive anger. His eyes, usually calculating, widened imperceptibly. Julian projected a new set of decrypted files onto the holographic table. While you were out, I received an encrypted file from an anonymous source. It's Dr. Vance's most recent research notes, the ones he was trying to hide from Richard. He mentions that of the 5 successful subjects, Stella, genetically, is the most refined, the purest expression of Project Genesis. He called her. Her cognitive enhancement markers are off the charts. Even compared to the others, Richard chose her for a reason. He views her as his ultimate prize. Project Genesis? Richard repeated, his voice losing its smooth cadence, becoming rougher, more agitated. What in the blazes are you talking about, Anya? That's that's ancient history, a theoretical indulgence of your father's. Something he dabbled in before he saw the light and focused on tangible ventures. It was nothing. A fanciful notion. The information was a cold splash of water on Anya's face, cutting through the emotional fog. Stella wasn't just a baby, she was a weapon, in Richard's eyes. His ultimate tool for control, the embodiment of his monstrous vision. And he had taken her. It was more than a fanciful notion, wasn't it? Richard, Anya pressed, leaning forward slightly, her gaze unwavering. It was a highly classified project, funded by the Sharma Family Foundation, involving advanced genetic engineering and human trials, conducted at Vitalis Labs, a project that, I suspect, has just resurfaced in a most unexpected and profoundly troubling way. Anya stood up, her eyes blazing with an intensity Julian had rarely seen. Then we go after him, now. Every resource, every contact, every bit of information we have, we bring Stella back. Richard set his glass down with a thud, his face hardening into a mask of indignation. Anya, I find your accusations both baseless and insulting. My brother's scientific interests were broad, yes, but he was a man of integrity. And as for Vitalis Labs, I recall some irregularities, yes. But the foundation merely provided some initial seed funding for what was presented as a promising agricultural biotechnology venture. When the ethical concerns arose, we immediately pulled out. Your father was horrified by what Vance was doing. Julian nodded, his own determination matching hers. We've already started. Ilara, even injured, managed to send out a distress signal before losing consciousness. Our security teams are tracking Richard's last known movements. He's heading for the Old Port District, a series of abandoned warehouses. He's planning to make a break for it, likely via a private vessel. His denial was too vehement, too rehearsed. Anya noticed the subtle clench of his jaw, the almost imperceptible tremor in his hand. He was lying, or at least obscuring a significant part of the truth. Horrified. Was he? Yet his private journals, which I've just reviewed, suggest otherwise. They are filled with intricate details of Project Genesis, right up until his death. He won't escape, Anya declared, her voice cold and hard as steel. Not with Stella. I will personally drag him back to face justice. Richard stood up, his voice rising in volume, betraying his agitation. You dare to rifle through your deceased father's private effects. Have you no respect? This is an invasion of his privacy, a desecration of his memory. And what do you hope to find? Anya, some long-lost secret to undermine my position. Your paranoia is becoming unbearable. The chase was on. Anya, accompanied by Julian and the remaining operatives, raced towards the Old Port, a gritty, desolate area of the city where the gleaming towers of Nexus Tech seemed a world away. The contrast was stark. The world of advanced AI and quantum computing now battling in the decrepit shadows of a forgotten industrial zone. Nexus Tech's stealth vehicles, usually used for covert corporate operations, now sliced through the night, their engines barely a whisper. My paranoia, as you call it, is rooted in reality. Richard, Anya countered, her voice remaining calm, a stark contrast to his bluster. 5 babies were delivered to my office today. 5 infants, bearing a genetic link to my father, and a chilling anonymous letter invoking his legacy and threatening me if I fail to protect them. They are the undeniable, living proof of Project Genesis. And I believe you know far more about their origins than you let on. As they approached the port, a series of old, derelict warehouses loomed like silent sentinels, their windows shattered, their corrugated iron walls rust-streaked and scarred. The air was thick with the scent of salt, decay, and a faint, acrid tang of exhaust fumes. Somewhere within this labyrinth of neglect, Richard held Stella. Richard stared at her, his face a mixture of shock and something else Anya couldn't quite decipher. Fear, recognition. He quickly composed himself. Though the color had drained from his face, babies delivered to your office. Anya, this is madness. A desperate ploy by some deranged individual. Perhaps a disgruntled former employee of Vitalis Labs, trying to extort you or damage Nexus Tech. It has nothing to do with me, or your father's legitimate research. Scans indicate a high concentration of armed personnel within Warehouse 7, An operative reported through Anya's comms, and a large, fast-moving yacht docked at Pier 3 being prepped for departure. Then why did the Sharma Family Foundation provide seed funding to a lab conducting undisclosed human trials? Anya pressed. Why were you aware of Vitalis Lab's irregularities, but dismissed them as mere ethical concerns when the actual records show significant criminal negligence and the disappearance of research subjects? That's our target, Anya commanded. Julian, stay back with the main team. I'm going in. Richard paced across the plush carpet, his usual composure completely shattered. The Foundation's investments are vast, Anya. I cannot be expected to oversee every single one. There were hundreds of ventures. And as for Vance, he was a rogue scientist, a charlatan. We cut ties as soon as we realized the extent of his depravity. Anya, no! Julian protested, his voice urgent. It's too dangerous. Let the operatives lead. Your skills are strategic, not combat. His words were hollow, ringing with an artificial indignation. Anya watched him, her mind rapidly assembling the pieces. Richard was clearly involved, perhaps not directly in the scientific aspect, but certainly in the financial and cover-up. He was trying to distance himself, to create a plausible deniability. He has Stella, Anya stated, her voice resonating with an unshakable resolve. And he wants to face me. This is my fight. He underestimated me once. Julian, he won't make that mistake again. And neither will I. She grabbed a compact, high-frequency sonic disruptor from one of the operatives, a non-lethal weapon designed to incapacitate without permanent harm. She preferred to avoid bloodshed, but she would not hesitate to defend Stella. Tell me, Richard, Anya said, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. What exactly was your role in the Sharma Family Foundation's investments during the period of Project Genesis? And what did you gain from its secrecy? Anya moved with a focused intensity, her tactical suit providing enhanced mobility and a heads-up display. She entered Warehouse 7, the interior, a cavernous space filled with stacks of decaying crates and the ghostly silhouettes of old machinery. The air was frigid, echoing with the distant sounds of the port. Richard stopped pacing, turning to face her. His eyes narrowed, a cold, calculating glint replacing the feigned anger. My role, dear niece, was to protect the family's interests, to ensure that your father's more abstract pursuits did not bankrupt us, or, heaven forbid, taint the family name. And what I gained was stability, influence, and the knowledge that I was the truly pragmatic one, the one who kept the family afloat while your father chased his scientific phantoms. Richard! Anya's voice boomed through the warehouse, amplified by her comms. Show yourself, this ends now. And you believe that included covering up illegal human experimentation? Anya challenged. A sneering laugh echoed from the shadows. Richard Sharma emerged from behind a towering stack of crates, his designer suit rumpled, his face haggard but still alight with a twisted triumph. In his arms, swaddled tightly, was Stella, her tiny form a heartbreakingly fragile contrast to his menacing presence. Stella was whimpering softly, her small face scrunched up in distress. He sighed, a theatrical gesture of exasperation. Sometimes, difficult decisions must be made. Anya, for the greater good of the family, for the greater good of Nexus Tech. You, with your naive idealism, wouldn't understand the complexities of power, the sacrifices required to maintain it. Anya, my dear niece, Richard sneered, his eyes gleaming with a mad light. You came. I knew you would. So predictable, always chasing after lost causes. And now, you've finally walked into my trap. Anya felt a surge of cold fury. His words were a confession, thinly veiled. He had known. He had been complicit. And now, he was attempting to rationalize it, to elevate his own self-serving actions into some twisted form of nobility. Anya's gaze was fixed on Stella, her heart aching with a fierce, protective love. Let her go, Richard. This isn't about her. It's about your pathetic ambition, your twisted perversion of my father's work. I understand power, Richard, Anya said, standing up, her voice regaining its usual steel. And I understand responsibility. What I don't understand is how anyone could betray their own family and innocent lives for the sake of influence and stability. She walked towards the door, her back to him. Pathetic! Richard roared, his voice rising in volume. This is destiny. Anya. This little one, she is the future, the pinnacle of human evolution, with her. And the power of Project Chimera. I will remake the world, and you, with your antiquated notions of ethics and morality, will be crushed beneath my heel. He clutched Stella tighter, her whimpers growing louder. You're making a grave mistake, Anya, Richard warned, his voice now devoid of any pretense, carrying a chilling threat. Poking into the past can unleash forces you cannot control. Some secrets are best left buried. Anya saw the glint of steel in the hands of two armed mercenaries who emerged from behind Richard. Her operatives, positioned strategically outside, were already engaging Richard's remaining forces. This was the final showdown. Anya paused at the doorway, turning her head slightly to look back at him. Some secrets. Richard refused to stay buried. And I will uncover every single one of them, no matter the cost. You won't get away with this, Richard, Anya stated, her voice unwavering. The world knows your crimes. There's nowhere left for you to run. She left him standing alone in his opulent penthouse, the echoes of their confrontation hanging heavy in the air. As she rode the elevator down, Anya felt a renewed sense of purpose, mixed with a growing certainty that her uncle was not merely an obstruction, but a central piece of the dark puzzle. His denial had been too emphatic, his anger too raw, his veiled threats too revealing. The 5 babies were not just a legacy, they were a weapon, wielded by an unseen hand. And Richard Sharma was, at the very least, an accomplice. Anya knew now that she was not just fighting for the truth, but for the very soul of her family, and the future of those who had been born into its most dangerous secrets. The battle lines were drawn, and the enemy was closer than she had ever imagined. Oh, but there is... Anya, Richard laughed, a manic sound that grated on her nerves. Once I'm on that yacht, I'll be beyond their reach. And Stella, she'll be my ticket to a new empire, built on true, unbridled power. The confrontation with Richard had left a bitter taste in Anya's mouth, but it had also clarified her resolve. Her uncle's thinly veiled threats and evasive answers confirmed her deepest suspicions. Richard Sharma was not merely an unwitting bystander in Project Genesis. He was an active participant, complicit in its dark secrets. The battlefield was now defined, and the enemy within her own family. He began to retreat towards a hidden exit at the far end of the warehouse, his mercenaries providing covering fire. Anya dodged behind a stack of rusted barrels, the sonic disruptor held firmly in her hand. She couldn't risk a direct attack while Richard held Stella. She needed a plan, a precise, strategic maneuver to separate him from the baby. Back at the safe house, the atmosphere was a whirlwind of controlled activity. Pediatric nurses moved with quiet efficiency, attending to the 5 infants, who, despite their mysterious origins, were thriving under expert care. Anya observed them from a distance, the unfamiliar warmth in her chest growing with each passing hour. The ginger-haired boy, whom the nurses had provisionally named Leo for his roaring cries, was surprisingly robust. The dark-skinned girl, Clara, possessed an ethereal calm. The fair-haired girl, now named Luna for her bright, curious eyes, showed an early affinity for tracking movement. The boy with black hair, dubbed Orion, was a deep sleeper, almost unnervingly still, and the smallest, most delicate of them all, a tiny girl with wisps of brown hair, was named Stella, radiating a quiet strength. Each child, a miniature enigma, carried fragments of the truth Anya desperately sought. Richard, your escape route is compromised. Julian's voice crackled in her ear. Our teams have secured Pier 3. The yacht is disabled. Julian, ever the meticulous strategist, had already set his legal team in motion, filing emergency guardianship petitions. It's a delicate dance. Anya, he had explained earlier, we're asserting abandonment, which is plausible given the circumstances, but we need to ensure the legal framework is ironclad. Any misstep, and the anonymous sender, or even Richard, could challenge your custody. Richard paused, a flicker of genuine shock on his face. He turned, his eyes narrowing, his gaze scanning the warehouse, realizing he was trapped. His mercenaries, seeing their escape cut off, became more desperate, firing wildly. Then leave no room for error. Julian, Anya had commanded. Their safety is paramount. This changes nothing! Richard screamed, his voice laced with venom. I still have Stella, and I will not hesitate to silence her. if you come any closer. He pressed something cold and metallic against Stella's tiny head, a chilling threat that stopped Anya in her tracks. While Julian handled the legal fortifications, Anya delved deeper into the financial labyrinth surrounding Vitalis Labs. Elara, leveraging Nexus Tech's formidable data analysis capabilities, had unearthed a convoluted web of shell corporations and offshore accounts. The Sharma Family Foundation had indeed provided initial funding, but after the official withdrawal, a secondary stream of investments had quietly funneled into Vitalis Labs, carefully disguised and untraceable to any direct Sharma family member. However, the patterns of these transactions, their timing, and the specific offshore entities used bore a striking resemblance to other dealings Anya had uncovered when thwarting Richard's previous attempts to destabilize Nexus Tech. Anya's blood ran cold. He couldn't. But the look in his eyes, the pure, unadulterated madness, told her he was capable of anything. She had to act. Now, it's like his financial fingerprint. Anya, Elara reported through a secure video link, her face a pale rectangle on Anya's screen. These aren't typical foundation investments. They're designed for obfuscation, for deniability. Richard is a master of this particular art. She knew his arrogance was his biggest weakness. He would want to savor his supposed victory, to gloat. That was her opening. So he wasn't merely covering up my father's supposed indulgences, Anya mused, her gaze fixed on the intricate flowcharts of money trails. He was actively funding Vitalis Labs even after the public outcry. But why? What did he stand to gain from Project Genesis? You're a coward, Richard, Anya taunted, her voice carefully modulated to provoke him. Hiding behind an infant. A truly powerful man wouldn't need to threaten a baby. He'd face his opponent head-on. Just as Anya pondered this, a new piece of information materialized. Elara's search for Dr. Elias Vance, the disgraced geneticist, had yielded an unexpected result. Vance was not in hiding, as many had assumed. He was, in fact, living under an assumed name, but had recently resurfaced in a private forum frequented by discredited scientists and radical bioethicists. He had posted a cryptic message, hinting at a monumental discovery being stolen and perverted. Richard snarled, his eyes blazing with fury. Don't you dare question my power. Anya, I am the architect of this new world. I am superior. He took a step forward, his chest puffing out, momentarily loosening his grip on Stella as he prepared to deliver another scathing retort. He's reaching out. Anya, Elara noted. It's a breadcrumb, but a risky one. He could be trying to exploit the situation, or he could be genuinely trying to warn someone. That was the fraction of a second Anya needed. With a burst of speed, she darted from behind her cover, moving with a grace born of desperation and purpose. Her arm shot out, not at Richard, but at one of the stacked crates beside him. The sonic disruptor emitted a focused burst of energy. The old, rusty metal shrieked. Buckling under the force, the stack of crates, already unstable, swayed violently. Get me a secure, untraceable line to him, Anya decided, her mind racing. This could be our direct link to the truth, but proceed with extreme caution. Vance is a wild card. He could be a victim, a perpetrator, or both. Richard, caught off guard, instinctively reached out to steady himself, momentarily releasing his two-handed grip on Stella. It was a reflex, a moment of weakness, but it was enough. The contact was made through a labyrinthine series of encrypted proxies, ensuring Anya's identity remained concealed. Dr. Vance, his voice raspy and tinged with paranoia, was initially wary. He spoke in riddles, hinting at the promise of new life and the shadow of manipulation. Anya, however, was adept at navigating such conversations, patiently drawing him out, assuring him that her interest was in justice, not condemnation. As the crates began to topple, Anya didn't hesitate. She threw herself forward, a blur of motion, snatching Stella from Richard's arms just as he stumbled, his face contorted in disbelief and rage. The children, Vance finally whispered, his voice cracking. They are the key, the culmination of Project Genesis. Your father, he was a visionary. He sought to perfect humanity, to eliminate disease, to enhance intelligence. But not like this. Stella, Anya cried, pulling the baby protectively against her chest, her body shielding the infant as she rolled to the ground. narrowly avoiding the falling crates. The small baby was crying loudly now, her tiny face red. But she was safe in Anya's embrace. Like what, Dr. Vance? Anya pressed gently. What happened? Richard roared, seeing his prize gone, his face a mask of primal fury. He lunged at Anya, a wild, desperate attack. But Anya was ready. She had anticipated this. As he came within reach, she brought the sonic disruptor up, not to stun, but to disorient. A focused blast of high-frequency sound hit Richard directly, vibrating through his skull, sending him reeling back, clutching his head, groaning in pain and confusion. Vance hesitated. A long, drawn-out silence. Richard Sharma, he finally spat out, the name laced with venom. He was the serpent in the garden. He saw the potential, yes, but not for humanity's good. He saw control, power. He wanted to weaponize it, to create something commercially viable. Her operatives, who had been pushing through the mercenaries, now burst into the main area, their stun guns trained on Richard and his remaining men. The mercenaries, seeing their leader incapacitated and their escape cut off, quickly surrendered. A cold spike of understanding pierced Anya. Richard wasn't just covering up, he was actively hijacking her father's research for his own nefarious purposes. Weaponize what? Dr. Vance. And what did he want to make commercially viable? Anya held Stella close, rocking her gently, whispering words of comfort. The baby's cries slowly subsided, replaced by soft whimpers as she burrowed into Anya's embrace. Anya felt an overwhelming wave of relief, so potent it almost brought her to her knees. Stella was safe. The children, the 5 babies, Anya said, her voice barely a whisper. They are those products. Richard, disoriented and defeated, was quickly apprehended. As he was led away in restraints, his eyes, still glazed with pain, found Anya's. This isn't over, Anya, he snarled, a chilling promise of future vengeance. You may have won this battle, but the war for Project Genesis, it will never end. They are the first successful batch, Vance confirmed, a shudder in his voice. The others, the earlier attempts, they were failures, developmental abnormalities, ethical quandaries. That's why Vitalis Labs was shut down. Richard orchestrated the cover-up, silencing anyone who knew too much. He extracted the viable subjects. These 5, just before the public outcry became too loud, he kept them hidden, maturing them in secret facilities, waiting for the opportune moment. Anya simply looked at him, her gaze unwavering, her grip on Stella firm. You are wrong, Richard, she stated, her voice imbued with a newfound strength and a quiet, profound conviction. The war for Project Genesis is already over. It ended the moment I chose to protect these children, to reclaim my father's true legacy, and to ensure that your dark vision of power will never see the light of day. Your reign of terror, Richard, is finished. Anya's mind reeled, an army of super-intelligent children. It was a dystopian nightmare, a perversion of her father's idealistic vision. Why send them to me now? What is his motive? The last remnants of Richard's forces were rounded up. The operatives secured the warehouse. Julian, rushing in, saw Anya holding Stella, a profound relief washing over his face. You did it, Anya! You got her back. Leverage, Vance rasped. He's making his move against Nexus Tech. He plans to take over the company, to integrate this technology into your AI. Imagine, Anya, Project Chimera, with the raw processing power of these children. Guided by Richard's malevolent vision, he sent them to you as a twisted message, a claim of ownership, a display of his power, and a warning that he holds the cards, including the lives of those innocent children. Anya nodded, her eyes still on Stella, who was now quietly sucking her thumb, safe and warm against Anya's chest. The battle had been fierce, the stakes unimaginable, but they had won. Richard was defeated, the evidence secured, and Stella was back in her arms. The ordeal had pushed Anya to her limits, forcing her to confront not only external enemies, but also her own deeply buried instincts. She had faced down a monster, rescued an innocent life, and in doing so, had discovered a strength and a love she never knew she possessed. The path ahead was still uncertain, but with Stella safe, and the truth unearthed, Anya was ready for whatever came next. He's trying to provoke me, Anya concluded, her voice devoid of emotion, though a storm raged within her. To bait me into a reaction. perhaps to expose a weakness. The aftermath of the raid on the Old Port District was a whirlwind of activity. Richard Sharma, subdued but still defiant, was handed over to the authorities. His web of corporate fraud and unethical scientific experimentation laid bare by the irrefutable evidence Anya had secured. The media, already ravenous for details after Clara Vance's initial exposé, now descended like vultures, their headlines screaming of deception, power, and the shocking discovery of Project Genesis. Or to make you an accomplice, Vance countered. If you, the CEO of Nexus Tech, are found to be harboring these genetically engineered children, the public scandal alone could destroy you and the company. He wants you trapped, forced to comply, or to be utterly ruined. Back at the safe house, a fragile calm had returned. Though tinged with the lingering trauma of Stella's abduction, Alara, though still nursing a throbbing head, was recovering well. Her relief at Stella's safe return evident in her tired but bright eyes. Julian, ever the stoic, finally allowed himself a genuine smile as he watched Anya cradling Stella. The tiny baby now sleeping peacefully, the call ended abruptly, Vance disconnecting without another word, leaving Anya to grapple with the chilling implications of his revelation. Richard wasn't just attempting a corporate takeover, he was orchestrating a hostile acquisition using human lives as pawns and leveraging a dark secret from her own family's past. The threat was not just to her company, but to her very freedom and the lives of these 5 innocent children. The evidence from the facility is conclusive. Anya, Julian reported, a stack of encrypted drives and detailed reports spread before him on the holographic table. Vance's original research, your father's true intentions, and Richard's subsequent corruption of Project Genesis, it's all there. The authorities have enough to put Richard away for a very long time. And more importantly, it vindicates your father. It shows his original vision, while perhaps ethically naive, was driven by a desire for human improvement, not control. Anya immediately summoned Julian and Alara. She relayed Vance's testimony, watching their faces darken with each revelation. Richard isn't just a corporate predator, she stated, her voice sharp with a newfound urgency. He's a puppet master, pulling strings woven from genetic manipulation and ethical depravity. He means to use these children, to weaponize them, to create a new generation of dominance through a perversion of my father's research. Anya nodded, her gaze fixed on Stella's small, peaceful face. The revelation about her father's true intentions, unearthed from the dusty journals and encrypted files, had been a complex emotional journey. He had indeed pushed boundaries, delved into controversial science, but his heart, she now understood, had been in the right place. Richard had been the one to twist that idealism into something monstrous. And Elias Vance, Anya asked, any word? This changes everything, Julian said, his usual calm replaced by a grim determination. The legal framework for protecting the children must be strengthened immediately. We need to petition for permanent guardianship, citing extreme abandonment and a clear threat to their welfare. And we need to find Vance again. His testimony, if corroborated, is crucial. He contacted us shortly after the raid, Julian replied. He saw the news, understood Richard was defeated. He's agreed to cooperate fully with the authorities in exchange for witness protection. He wants to atone, in his own way, for his part in the project. His testimony will be invaluable in solidifying the case against Richard. He won't be easy to find, Alara warned. He's a ghost. And if Richard knows he's spoken to us, Vance's life could be in immediate danger. With Richard apprehended and the truth about Project Genesis emerging, Anya now faced the monumental task of rebuilding. Nexus Tech, though shaken by the scandal, had weathered the storm due to Anya's decisive leadership and the clear distinction between her actions and Richard's. The board, now purged of Richard's loyalists, reaffirmed their confidence in her. Project Chimera, temporarily stalled by the cyber attacks, was quickly back on track, its integrity secured. Anya nodded, her mind already shifting into offensive mode. We need to move faster than Richard. He's already making his play for Nexus Tech. Alara, I need you to initiate a deep forensic audit of Nexus Tech's current financial standing. Specifically, look for any unusual stock movements, any sudden influx of capital from unknown sources, any attempts to manipulate our stock prices or board member votes. He's building his attack from the shadows. But the biggest change, the most profound shift, was in Anya herself. The woman who had once defined her life solely by corporate success and logical precision was now, unequivocally, a mother. The four babies, Leo, Luna, Clara, Orion, and especially Stella, had irrevocably altered her world. Their needs, their vulnerability, their sheer, innocent joy had awakened a part of her she never knew existed. "He's been working on this for years. Anya," Julian reminded her, "he's patient, cunning. This isn't just about Project Genesis anymore. This is a full-scale assault on Nexus Tech itself, with the children as his ultimate leverage. We need to make sure they are safe, truly safe." "Julian," Anya stated, her voice softer now, imbued with a new tenderness. "Not just from Richard, but from anyone else who might seek to exploit their unique genetic makeup. The others Richard mentioned, we can't be complacent." Anya looked out the window of the safe house, her gaze sweeping over the sprawling, tranquil landscape. The peace was deceptive. A storm was brewing, and she was at its epicenter. The stakes were higher than she had ever imagined. Not only did she have to protect Nexus Tech from a hostile takeover by her own uncle, but she also had to safeguard the lives of 5 children whose existence was a testament to both her father's flawed genius and Richard's ruthless ambition. Julian had anticipated this. "My team is already working on the most comprehensive legal framework possible. We'll establish a robust trust for their future, ensuring their identities are protected and their unique needs are met. And we'll implement layers of security that would make the Pentagon jealous." He paused, a gentle smile on his face. "You've done remarkably well, Anya. Not just as a CEO, but as a mother." The thought sent a jolt through her. Richard's control over the board was considerable. His network of corrupt alliances ran deep within the corporate world. He wouldn't hesitate to use every dirty trick in the book, including character assassination and legal intimidation, to achieve his goals. Anya knew she was walking into a minefield, one where her reputation, her company, and the lives of innocent children hung in the balance. Anya managed a small, genuine smile. The word still felt foreign, yet it resonated deeply within her. She had embraced this unexpected role, not out of obligation, but out of a fierce, unyielding love. The babies, far from being a burden, had become her greatest strength, her most profound purpose. Just then, a discreet alert flashed on Anya's private secure network. It was Jensen. "Ms. Sharma, we've detected unusual activity in the Nexus Tech network, a series of sophisticated stealth attacks, targeting our Project Chimera AI core. It's an attempt to exfiltrate proprietary data, specifically the neural network architecture." Ilara, now back at her station, wearing a bandage on her head like a badge of honor, projected a new set of data onto the table. "Anya, I've been analyzing the genetic enhancements in the children, based on Vance's notes. While they do possess accelerated cognitive abilities and enhanced cellular regeneration markers, there's also a unique biosignature. It seems their genetics are intricately linked to Project Chimera's neural network architecture." Anya's eyes narrowed. Richard was moving. He wasn't just planning a takeover, he was already trying to steal Nexus Tech's most valuable asset, likely to integrate it with the enhanced capabilities of the Genesis children, or to destabilize the company before making his final move. Anya frowned. "What does that mean?" "Ilara, initiate full lockdown protocols." "Jensen," Anya commanded, her voice calm despite the escalating crisis. "Deploy all active countermeasures. Trace the attack's origin. This is a direct act of corporate espionage, and an act of war. Do not let them breach our firewalls." "It means," Ilara explained, a hint of awe in her voice, "that their brains are not just highly intelligent, they are, in a way, organically compatible with Nexus Tech's most advanced AI. Your father, in his idealism, wasn't just trying to create super-intelligent humans. He was trying to create a symbiotic relationship between advanced AI and enhanced human intellect, a bridge to a new form of consciousness. Perhaps Richard, of course, saw it as a means to control Project Chimera, to make the AI loyal only to his commands through a biological interface." As Jensen confirmed, Anya turned to Julian and Ilara, a fierce determination etched on her face. "Richard has shown his hand. He thinks he can outmaneuver me, use the children against me, but he underestimates the power of truth and the strength of a woman protecting her own. This isn't just about business anymore. This is about justice, about legacy, and about the future of 5 innocent lives. We will expose him, we will defeat him, and we will protect these children. The revelation was astounding. Her father hadn't just created life, he had envisioned a harmonious, advanced future where humanity and AI could evolve together. It was a grand, almost poetic vision, tragically twisted by Richard's greed. The quiet hum of the servers, once a soothing symphony, now sounded like a battle drum. Anya knew that the coming days would be the most challenging of her life. She was no longer just a CEO, she was a guardian, a detective, and a warrior. The subtle threat had now blossomed into a full-blown war, and Anya Sharma, with 5 mysterious babies as her unexpected charge, was ready to fight. Anya looked at the sleeping babies, then at the complex neural network architecture of Project Chimera on the screen. The connection was undeniable, profound. Her father had sought to create a new kind of legacy, a true evolution. And now, that legacy rested in her hands, intertwined with the lives of these 5 children. The sterile air of the safe house, usually a source of calm, now hummed with an almost palpable tension. Anya Sharma, Julian Thorne, and Alara sat around a secure holographic table, the shimmering projections displaying a bewildering array of Data Nexus Tech's fluctuating stock prices, Richard Sharma's convoluted financial network, and the latest reports from the medical team regarding the 5 infants, the babies, nestled in their high-tech bassinets in an adjoining, soundproofed nursery, were thankfully oblivious to the storm brewing around them. Their quiet gurgles and soft breaths were a poignant contrast to the high-stakes corporate war Anya was preparing to wage. "We need to protect this, Alara," Anya said, her voice filled with a quiet determination. "Not to exploit it, but to understand it, to ensure that this unique potential is nurtured, guided, and used for the true benefit of humanity, as my father originally intended, and never, ever, to be weaponized." Vance's desperate confession had stripped away the layers of ambiguity. Richard was not merely a shadowy figure. He was the architect of a monstrous plan, a perversion of her father's legacy, aiming to seize control of Nexus Tech and weaponize human potential for his own gain. The cyber attacks on Project Chimera, as reported by Jensen, were proof of his escalating aggression. Richard wasn't just playing chess, he was playing with human lives and the future of global technology. The days that followed were a whirlwind of activity, both corporate and personal. Anya had to issue public statements, navigate regulatory hearings, and reassure shaken investors. Nexus Tech, under her firm hand, began to implement new, stricter ethical guidelines for all research, ensuring transparency and accountability. She established a special research division, led by a newly recovered Alara, dedicated to ethically understanding and responsibly developing the potential of Project Genesis. Not for exploitation, but for pure scientific inquiry and humanitarian applications. He wants to destabilize Nexus Tech, then force a vote of no confidence at the next board meeting, Anya stated, her voice sharp, cutting through the complex data streams. He'll use the leaked information about Project Chimera's vulnerabilities he created, to paint me as an incompetent leader. Then, when the company is weak, he'll swoop in, rescue it, and bring his enhanced assets into play. Meanwhile, life at the safe house transformed into a bustling, vibrant home. Anya, the once solitary CEO, found herself immersed in the joyful, messy reality of raising 5 infants. She learned to change diapers with surprising efficiency, to soothe crying babies with a soft touch, and to marvel at their rapid development. Luna's first word, "Mama," had brought tears to Anya's eyes, a profound emotional breakthrough that had reshaped her entire perception of self. Leo's infectious giggles, Clara's serene gaze, Orion's deep, thoughtful sighs, and Stella's quiet, observant presence filled her life with a warmth and purpose she had never known. Julian nodded, his expression grim. His strategy is clear: create chaos, then offer himself as the solution. The fact that he already has a network of loyalists on the board, cultivated over years, makes it even more dangerous. She found herself prioritizing their care above everything else, delegating more effectively, and finding a balance between her demanding role as CEO and her unexpected, yet deeply fulfilling, role as a mother. Julian, witnessing her transformation, often remarked on the change, a quiet admiration in his eyes. He had become a trusted uncle figure, a steady hand in the chaos, and a rock of support. And the babies are his ultimate leverage, Alara added, her face pale. If the truth about their origin leaks, it would not only destroy Anya's reputation, but also tarnish Nexus Tech beyond repair. Richard could then step in, claiming to clean up the mess while secretly exploiting the Genesis technology. The physical safe house, once a sterile fortress, was now filled with the cheerful chaos of baby toys, colorful blankets, and the scent of formula. Anya, who had once found solace in the hum of server racks, now found it in the rhythmic breathing of sleeping infants. Her apartment in the city, once a minimalist shrine to efficiency, was being rapidly converted into a child-friendly haven. Anya slammed her fist lightly on the table, a rare display of emotion. He underestimates me. He thinks I will buckle under the pressure, that I will prioritize my reputation over these children. He believes he can control this narrative. Her eyes, usually cool and calculating, now blazed with a fierce, protective fire. But he is wrong. We will not let him win. The scandal surrounding Richard gradually faded from the headlines, replaced by stories of Nexus Tech's ethical resurgence and Anya Sharma's remarkable leadership. The public, initially shocked, now admired her strength and her unwavering commitment to justice and the well-being of the mysterious children under her care. The term CEO who received 5 super cute babies evolved from a sensational headline into a testament to a woman who had faced an impossible situation and emerged stronger, more human, and more profound than ever before. What's the counterplan, Anya? Julian asked, his voice steady, reflecting his unwavering faith in her. He holds significant power, both overt and covert. Anya knew that Richard's threat of others might still loom, a shadowy possibility in the vast, complex world of illegal genetic research. But she was no longer afraid. She had faced the darkness within her own family, fought for the truth, and protected the innocent. She had discovered a strength she never knew she possessed, born not from ambition, but from an unexpected, fierce love. The legacy of Project Genesis, once a source of fear and corruption, was now being carefully guided towards a future of hope, discovery, and genuine human progress. Under the watchful, loving eyes of a CEO who had truly found her purpose, Anya leaned back, her gaze distant, as if seeing beyond the room, beyond the city, into the intricate web of power and deceit her uncle had woven. Richard's strength is his control. His weakness is his arrogance. He thrives in the shadows, manipulating from afar. Our first move must be to pull him into the light, to force his hand, to expose his methods. Months melted into a tapestry of newfound routines and profound growth. The safe house, once a fortress against a hidden enemy, had transformed into a vibrant, chaotic home, echoing with the joyous cacophony of 5 rapidly developing infants. Anya Sharma, the formidable CEO of Nexus Tech, had seamlessly integrated her professional and personal lives, a feat once deemed impossible by her own rigid standards. The cold, logical world she had meticulously built had not been shattered. It had expanded, enriched by an unexpected wellspring of love and responsibility. Public disclosure, Alara suggested, her eyes widening. But the risk, Anya, the babies, Stella, the smallest and once the most vulnerable, had blossomed. Her quiet observation had given way to bursts of infectious giggles, her small hands reaching out with surprising strength. She still possessed an unnerving depth in her gaze, a preternatural calm that hinted at the unique enhancements of Project Genesis. But it was now tempered by the pure innocence of childhood. Luna, with her bright, curious blue eyes, was already babbling in intricate patterns, her innate cognitive abilities manifesting as an accelerated linguistic development that Alara, the brilliant and now fully recovered head of ethical AI research, meticulously documented. Leo, the ginger-haired firebrand, crawled with a boundless energy, his roars of delight filling the rooms. Clara, serene and contemplative, seemed to process the world with a quiet wisdom, often observing her siblings with a knowing smile. And Orion, the deep sleeper, possessed a serene confidence, his moments of wakefulness marked by an intense focus and an almost immediate grasp of new concepts. Not the full truth, Anya clarified, her mind already racing, connecting the dots. Not yet. We protect the children's identities at all costs. but we expose his financial machinations, his attempts to manipulate Nexus Tech's stock, his illicit funding of Vitalis Labs. After its official closure and the public outrage, we expose him as the corporate predator he truly is, not just to the board, but to the world. Anya watched them, her heart swelling with an emotion so potent, so overwhelming. It defied all her previous understanding of human experience. This was love, pure and unconditional, a force far more powerful than any algorithm, any market strategy, any corporate ambition. She had not merely adopted them, they had adopted her, reshaping her identity, redefining her purpose. Julian considered this, a slow nod forming. It's a daring move. It will certainly draw attention, not all of it positive, but if we can provide irrefutable evidence of stock manipulation and illegal financial dealings, it could cripple his bid for Nexus Tech and force regulatory bodies to intervene. Nexus Tech, under Anya's revitalized leadership, had emerged from the scandal stronger and more ethically grounded. Richard Sharma, stripped of his assets and influence, was facing a lifetime in prison, his carefully constructed facade of corporate integrity utterly demolished. Dr. Elias Vance, under witness protection, had provided crucial testimony, ensuring that the full scope of Richard's depravity and the true idealistic intentions of Anya's father were brought to light. Precisely, Anya affirmed, we hit him where it hurts most, his carefully crafted image as a pillar of corporate integrity. We undermine his credibility, making his claims against me look like desperate deflections. She turned to Alara. Compile all the data you have on his shell corporations, the offshore accounts, the suspicious stock trades. Cross-reference them with any public statements he's made regarding Nexus Tech's stability or the ethics of scientific research. Look for inconsistencies, for blatant hypocrisy. The company had embraced a new mandate, driven by Anya's deepened understanding of her father's true vision for Project Genesis. Nexus Tech was no longer solely focused on market dominance. It was committed to pioneering ethical AI and advanced human development for the benefit of all humanity. The Special Research Division, led by Ilara, was carefully studying the unique genetic markers of the Genesis children, not to replicate or exploit, but to understand and nurture their potential within a rigorously ethical framework. Projects were launched to develop AI that could assist in global healthcare, environmental conservation, and education, all imbued with a human-centric philosophy. Ilara, already typing furiously on her tablet, nodded. It will be a mountain of data. But I can streamline the process. We can create a compelling narrative of financial impropriety. Anya found a profound satisfaction in this new direction. Her executive meetings, once solely about profit margins and market shares, now included discussions on social impact, ethical oversight, and the long-term benefits of their innovations for society. She had learned to delegate more effectively, trusting her executive team and empowering Alara's ethical research division. This allowed her to carve out precious time for the children, moments that had become the true anchors of her day. And Julian, Anya continued, turning to her legal counsel, prepare the emergency guardianship petitions for a permanent status. We need to be ready for any legal challenge from Richard. If he tries to claim the children, we must be armed with every legal defense available. Vance's testimony, even if not directly usable in court, gives us an understanding of the true nature of his intentions. Julian Thorne had remained her unwavering confidant and a constant presence in their lives. He had successfully secured permanent guardianship for the 5 children, establishing a complex legal trust that ensured their complete safety, privacy, and financial security well into their adulthood. He was now a familiar, comforting figure in the safe house, often found reading to the babies in a surprisingly gentle voice or sharing a quiet moment of reflection with Anya. Julian sighed. Vance's testimony alone isn't enough for a court, but it provides context. We need tangible proof of Richard's direct involvement in Project Genesis. Without it, it's just one disgraced scientist's word against a powerful corporate executive. Their relationship had deepened, evolving beyond the professional respect into a profound, unspoken bond. Julian had witnessed Anya's transformation, seen her vulnerability, her strength, and her boundless capacity for love. He admired her not just as the brilliant CEO, but as the fiercely protective mother who had risked everything for these innocent lives. One evening, as the children were finally asleep, their soft breaths filling the quiet living room, Julian looked at Anya, a warmth in his hazel eyes she had never seen before. "Then we will find that proof," Anya declared, her voice resolute. "But for now, public perception is our weapon. Richard thrives on secrecy. If we force him to fight in the open, he loses his advantage." "You've built something remarkable, Anya," he said, his voice soft. "Not just a company, but a family, a future." The plan began to take shape, intricate and daring. Anya decided to leverage a respected, independent investigative journalist, Clara Vance, no relation to Dr. Elias Vance, known for her relentless pursuit of corporate corruption. Clara had approached Nexus Tech before, seeking interviews on their groundbreaking AI, and Anya had always found her ethical and thorough. A carefully curated, anonymous data drop, revealing Richard's financial malpractices and his hidden ties to the defunct Vitalis Labs, would be the first salvo. Anya smiled, a genuine, radiant smile that reached her eyes. "I couldn't have done it without you, Julian. You were there, every step of the way, my rock." "We don't give her everything," Anya explained to Julian and Alara. "Just enough to ignite her interest, to point her in the right direction. She'll do the digging, and when she starts asking questions, Richard will have to respond. That's when he becomes vulnerable." He reached across the coffee table, gently taking her hand. His touch was warm, comforting. "We built this, Anya, together." The unspoken words hung in the air, rich with possibility, with a promise of shared future that was both thrilling and terrifying for a woman who had once avoided all emotional entanglement. She didn't pull her hand away. Ilara worked tirelessly, sifting through terabytes of financial data, meticulously isolating the patterns of Richard's illicit dealings. Julian, meanwhile, reinforced the legal barriers around the safe house and the children, anticipating Richard's inevitable counterattack. Anya, in the brief lulls between strategizing, found herself drawn to the nursery. She would sit by the bassinets, watching the babies sleep, their tiny chests rising and falling in rhythmic peace. Stella, the smallest, had a habit of grasping her finger, a surprisingly strong grip that anchored Anya to the present, a stark reminder of what she was fighting for. These moments of quiet connection, so alien to her former life, became her source of strength, her wellspring of purpose. The challenges were not entirely gone. The others Richard had vaguely alluded to, the shadowy figures interested in Project Genesis, remained a potential threat. Alara's research division was constantly on alert, monitoring for any clandestine attempts to replicate or exploit the Genesis technology. But Anya was no longer afraid. She had faced down a powerful, ruthless enemy and emerged victorious. She had a network of loyal allies, the formidable resources of Nexus Tech, and an unwavering purpose. As the days turned into a relentless blur of sleepless nights and strategic maneuvers, Richard's retaliation began. First, a series of anonymous, damning articles appeared on obscure tech blogs, subtly criticizing Anya's leadership, questioning Project Chimera's efficacy, and hinting at unforeseen ethical compromises within Nexus Tech. Then, at a scheduled board meeting, one of Richard's most vocal allies, a long-serving but notoriously malleable board member named Marcus Thorne, no relation to Julian, launched a thinly veiled attack on Anya's unilateral decision-making and lack of transparency. Echoing the anonymous blog post, Anya had also embraced the complexities of her father's legacy. She understood now that true progress wasn't about erasing humanity's flaws or creating a perfect species. It was about leveraging technology and knowledge to uplift, to heal, to connect. It was about creating a world where every child, regardless of their origin, had the chance to thrive, to fulfill their unique potential. Anya met Marcus's thinly veiled accusations with cold indifference, dissecting his arguments with precision, exposing their logical flaws, but she knew this was just the beginning. Richard was testing her, probing for weaknesses, trying to rattle her confidence. One sunny afternoon, Anya sat on the sprawling lawn of the safe house, watching the 5 children play. Leo was chasing a butterfly, his giggles echoing through the air. Luna was meticulously arranging a pile of colorful blocks into an intricate structure. Clara was observing a ladybug with a look of deep concentration. Orion was quietly sketching in a small notebook, his drawings already displaying an unusual precision. And Stella, her small hand nestled in Anya's, was simply watching the world, a serene smile on her face. Then came the real blow. a highly respected financial news outlet, one that Anya herself had often relied on, published a scathing expose. It accused Nexus Tech of artificially inflating its stock value through speculative ventures and highlighted Anya's authoritarian leadership style as a risk factor. The article, while carefully worded to avoid outright libel, contained just enough distorted truths and cleverly placed innuendo to send a tremor through the market. Nexus Tech's stock price, which had been resilient, began to dip. Anya felt a profound sense of peace. Her life, once a sterile pursuit of perfection, was now gloriously imperfect, filled with the delightful messiness of parenthood, the constant learning, the endless giving. The CEO, who had received a package containing 5 super cute babies and was shocked, had found not just a new chapter, but an entirely new book. A book filled with adventure, with sacrifice, with triumph, and most importantly, with an enduring, boundless love. Richard's network runs deeper than we thought, Julian observed, reviewing the article with a scowl. He has managed to weaponize public opinion, using his influence to plant these stories. The journey had been arduous, fraught with peril and betrayal. It had forced Anya Sharma to confront the darkest aspects of ambition and power, to face down the ghosts of her past and the enemies within her own family. But it had also led her to the most unexpected, most precious discovery of all, the profound joy of building a family, of protecting innocent lives, and of leading Nexus Tech towards a future illuminated by ethical innovation and genuine human connection. "He's trying to isolate me," Anya countered, her jaw set, "to make me seem untrustworthy, erratic, to erode confidence in my leadership before I can expose him." As the sun began to set, casting long, golden shadows across the lawn, Anya looked at her children, then at Julian, who stood nearby, a quiet smile on his face. This was her legacy now. Not just the sprawling empire of Nexus Tech, but the beating hearts of these 5 extraordinary children, nurtured by love, guided by integrity, and poised to shape a future far brighter than anyone could have ever imagined. The hum of the servers still sounded in the distance, a reminder of her professional world. But it was now harmonized by the laughter of children, a melody of a life truly lived, truly loved. The pressure mounted. Board members, who had once been loyal, or at least neutral, began to waver, their fear of Richard's influence outweighing their confidence in Anya. Rumors circulated through the company, whispering about Anya's secretive personal life and unexplained absences, all carefully orchestrated to undermine her authority.